The Gamers, Kyla's Rescue, written and narrated by C. Taylor, edited to meet YouTube guidelines. To purchase the unedited book, please click the link in the description. Chapter 20. From Sky's perspective. Sky watched Jareth as he slept, flat on his stomach, hugging his pillow. His breathing was steady, deep, and completely relaxed the way he always slept. Her body still hummed, wanting him to be with her again. Her mind, though, struggled with how much she needed him. He was helping her so much reorient to her new reality, but was it orienting itself around him? When he left her, would she have to do it all again? Would she even be able to find her way without him? He stirred as she watched, one hand hugging his pillow moved, reaching in her direction. He had done this frequently since they started to share his bed. The act always made her smile, and she gently grasped his hand to allow him to settle and return to deep sleep. She took a deep breath, wishing herself to remember every moment of her time with him. She mentally shifted her process, using his insights to ground herself into her new reality instead of grounding herself to him. Once he was tired of her, or got bored, or when she proved to be too embarrassing or too much work, he wouldn't deserve her falling apart over it. She was determined that she wouldn't punish him for his kindness to her. She also didn't want to take any moment with him for granted, wanted to make sure she enjoyed it, then let him go without any resistance once he was done. It was going to be one of the hardest challenges she would ever face, but it would be worth it. Time with him would be worth it. His eyes opened that same moment. She froze and melted at the same time, unable to speak, but her body was pounding for his touch. His hand pulled. She rushed to him, edited for content. He smiled, the possessive, dark, feral smile she'd first seen last night. This one ignited a fire she still didn't understand, but once lit, she let it consume her. From Jareth's perspective, he had taken her again the next morning in her bed, then again in the shower, on the countertop in the bathroom, and bent over the food prep area. It was her first time taking him this way. He missed seeing her eyes, but he knew he needed to develop some variety in his approach before she could start losing interest. Jareth's uncle had arranged special permission for his things to be moved into Sky's apartment for the rest of his stay. They both impatiently waited, wrapped in robes only, as his things were delivered. The doors finally closed, robes were ripped away, and it was the large sitting couch in the front room next, then against the fireplace, then real life obligation and duty forced an interruption. Edited for content. The Founders' Gala was mere hours away when a small army of founder assistants descended, invading their privacy. Jareth was escorted to one of the guest rooms, and Sky was taken to her suite. From Sky's perspective, Sky endured a never-ending series of yanks, pokes, heat, applied enhancements, all before she could even step into the gown. The assistants had brought the metal under support that had to be anchored to her body with a set of pull ties that were uncomfortably tight at points across her body to hold it in place. Then, the very heavy and ornate gown was carefully raised over her head and maneuvered to drape over the metal supports. The Sky feared it was very heavy and uncomfortable, but absolutely breathtaking. The crimson gown was a masterpiece of intricate gathers, delicately placed lacework, and gold embellishments that made the whole effect a graceful work of art. And now it was up to Sky to move in a way that confirmed the effect in the magnificent heels that matched her dress. The assistants backed away to admire their work. She'd heard more than one gasp and knew it was about the gown, not about the person wearing it. She checked herself over in the reflector screen, tapped it so the view scanned fully around her to make sure there wasn't anything out of place that would cause embarrassment at the event. She pointed a few adjustments that were quickly fixed. Other than that, the small army had done an amazing job. This looks absolutely perfect. Amazing work, everyone. Thank you, Sky told the group. Many seemed shocked by her words. She didn't understand why. Their work was impeccable. Her words didn't come close to compensating them for what they had done. She moved to leave the room to make her way to the cruiser as the time they needed to arrive at the gala had neared. All in the room stopped her instantly. Please don't. The public relations officers aren't quite done setting up, and Jareth isn't in position yet. Sky successfully stifled a groan and mastered discomfort with a smile and a nod. Of course his uncle would use this moment to his advantage. She took a deep, calming breath to try and stop her shaking hands and waited. The metalwork structure under her gown guaranteed she wouldn't be able to sit for the duration of the event. Her feet already felt the uncomfortable pressure against the beautiful shoes, and she dreaded having any attention focused on her. All of it, though, was a small price to pay if it meant she could have one more night with Jareth. However long this night in front of people went on, she was determined to spend every moment performing to perfection. All the right words, smiles, and laughs at the right times, always serene no matter the anxiety or pain she would feel. She would hold it together until they returned to her apartment. Only then would she let herself fall apart, let Jareth hold her, analyze why it always worked to calm her and ground her. Then, maybe she could figure out a way to do it without him. They're ready. Jareth has instructed us to tell you the relations officers will be streaming your first look at each other before the gala. He doesn't want you to act or be any way that will make you uncomfortable. Sky smiled and looked down. I know he wouldn't, she confirmed in barely more than a whisper. When she looked back up, the assistants were all smiling. Some had their hands over their hearts, and soft ahs sounded through the room. She looked at them all. I shall do my best to do justice to all your hard work tonight, she promised, then allowed them to help her out of the room and through the hall. They all had to let her go before she entered the great room. She adjusted her footing now that the entire weight of the gown was on her shoulders again and took the final steps on her own. Several people pointed their screens at her as she stepped through. She smiled serenely as she glanced around the room, finally locking eyes with his. She would do all this 100 times more just to see the smile he was showing her now. She wasn't sure what she did after seeing his eyes. He moved then, came closer, and extended his arm. Her body moved to take it, and she followed him through the room, out to the cruiser. Then they were finally moving away from her apartment toward the gala. Once they were safely enclosed in the semi-private environment, he leaned over and whispered in her ear, You did perfectly. I hope it wasn't too uncomfortable. Sky shivered from his breath on her ear and neck. I'm not even sure what I did after seeing you. If any of it is usable by your uncle, you deserve 100% of the credit. Sky felt his chuckle. His tongue left her earlobe a moment before he settled back into his seat. Sky ignored the throbbing need her body was demanding and focused on controlling the rising panic as they neared their destination. The Founders Hall was fully lit, draped with ornate tapestries. Banners floated on still air, and the Public Relations Office was in full force, having been given rare access to record and stream the event arrivals. The event itself would be private, but by the looks of those who just arrived, the attention was being enjoyed by most who were attending. Sky took a deep, calming breath. Jareth took her hand before turning to her. Thank you for doing this. I know it's not easy for you. She looked back at him. Is it easy for you? She wanted to know, wanted to see if she could calibrate how different her response was to a normal response. No, I guess it never is. I've found it's easier and I enjoy it more when you're with me, he admitted. She smiled and nodded. Same. Sky was surprised when their cruiser was ushered ahead of the waiting crafts to let them off next. She felt one eyebrow pull up as she turned to face Jareth. Diplomatic privilege? Jareth raised his hands in surrender. Hey, Founders Council insisted. It was already arranged before they knew about me. This is all for you. She felt herself turn pale. For the first time, she was grateful to be practically lying down to not alter the gown's sculptured flow. So if I hadn't come back from my time in nature, when I did, they would have started to worry. She was nondescript to keep their cover. This time, Jareth took a breath before speaking. Yeah, your return from the forest was perfectly timed. I guess I should give someone a heads up next time. She mentally took notes to incorporate this new development in whatever they planned next. Could she even leave the planet with him this time? She suppressed the panic that thought caused as the door opened. Jareth got out, then helped her. With practiced choreography, she stepped, then pulled part of the gown with her, stepped the other foot out, pulled a little more, then stepped away from the cruiser, and the gown flowed into place around her. Another cruiser landed with two attendants. Each rushed to her, glanced around the entire gown to make checks for any lace, drape, or metal embellishment that was out of place. She took by the surprised looks and lack of any of them touching the gown that she had made it out of the cruiser with it successfully intact. They both looked up at her and nodded that she could move to the next mark. She used her hand to sign and also mouthed a quick thank you to them both, then took Jareth's arm as they walked towards the image mark. 10 minutes of instructed poses, then they would move to the interview mark. At the image mark, they both posed together. Since Jareth was a known universe celebrity and Sky was a relative nobody off planet, shouted requests surrounded them for Sky to step away so images of just Jareth could be profitably sold. Every time Sky tried to move away from him, he tightened his arm around her waist. By the end of the session, no images of just him were captured. Many relation officers audibly were grumbling, but Jareth kept his arm tight around her waist and guided them both to the interview mark. By now, the relations officers had been told of Jareth's actions during the image mark, and one interviewer rushed to speak with him while another pulled Sky to the side to speak with her. Jareth released his arm from around her waist but insisted their hands stay connected, unwilling for them to be apart any further. As she expected, most of the questions she was asked were about Jareth. How do you feel being on a date with the most eligible man in the known universes? How could she possibly put that into words? It's amazing. He's an incredible man, charming, kind, interesting. I feel truly lucky to have spent time with him. How did you two meet? Came the next question. I was at the healing center to have my remote research on the healing arts approved and arranged. It was the same day Diplomat Badwin was visiting. My counselor, Master Healer Kohori, introduced us. Both men have a fascinating understanding of how to help people heal and live better lives. There, hopefully that'll make any future requests for items they needed from the healing center easier. How did you inspire him to focus so much of his attention on you? He has a reputation of moving on very quickly. Now, that was a diplomatic way to put it. That had to be his uncle's influence. I have no idea. Any plans for the future? Really? This was officially their second date. Since he's leaving tomorrow, I think the most I can hope for is a third date at some point. For now, though, I am enjoying his presence and his brilliant skill and knowledge on many subjects. Hopefully, that was just suggestive enough. After that question, she felt Jareth's hand pull slightly, signaling they could finally pass the interview mark and enter the gala. I'm getting the signal I need to go. Thank you for your kind questions, she offered, then retreated into Jareth's arm that wrapped around her waist again. He bent low to her ear. You made me sound good. Sky smiled and turned into his ear. I couldn't possibly make you sound good enough, but thank you. His arm tightened around her waist, his lips pressed at her jaw just below her ear, intimate, but not overly graphic. It still gave her shivers everywhere. The gala was breathtaking, the ballroom already full of people she'd known her whole life. The difference now, they all turned as she entered and watched her and her date walk in. The room shifted, many moving towards them. Most pulled at Jareth's attention, but again, he wouldn't let her go. Sky recognized what would be helpful and started talking with people that were waiting for Jareth's attention. Thankfully, she was familiar enough with Founder Protocol to know what subjects would be acceptable and how to maneuver inappropriate topics into comfortably interesting, safe conversations. Her skill and knowledge had been up to tonight theoretical, ideas she had developed through all the previous galas where she watched everything from a safe distance while trying to be invisible. She let the contact with Jareth calm her, remembering the feeling in case she ever needed to do something like this without him. The mingling continued, but unlike the previous night, they wouldn't need to separate for any amount of time. In fact, it was very important they were constantly seen together. From Kate and Kyla's perspective, Kyla adjusted the coding for the test victims that had already been implanted. The sedatives were ready for the rest. They didn't have quite enough healing bays on the craft for everyone. Alternates were set up. They had monitored the activity in the lab from screens throughout the day. The lab was now dark and quiet. The charges were ready, video feeds to the security center were altered, and they were both ready for the next step of their mission. From Sky's perspective, Jareth had taken her to the dance area. Dancing at the gala was more formal, very different from the club they had attended the night before. He held her, guided her as they moved to older music, softer sway. She found she liked it very much, dancing with Jareth, both the night before and tonight. The style, fast or slow, it didn't matter. She liked it. His mouth moved to her ear again. You're staying calmer than last night. Sky knew he was monitoring her. His thumb was on her wrist whenever they weren't alone. It was subtle, and it helped her remember to check herself. She would usually get so distracted by trying to be normal that she wouldn't realize when she was getting overwhelmed until it was too late. So far this night, with the constant reminder at her wrist, she was able to tell him when she needed a break. They had stepped aside to give her some time to adjust, and stepped back out when she was able to keep going. If anyone had noticed, they were kind enough to not mention anything, for which she was grateful. I recognize if your uncle wants us to date, this is going to happen a lot more. 2 nights in a row may be a crash course, but needful, I think. You're doing amazing, he encouraged. Sky smiled. Now I have to work on longevity and stamina, she admitted, already thinking ahead. Jareb shook his head. No, now you have to enjoy dancing in my arms. She finally focused on his eyes. I like your idea much better, she agreed and leaned into his shoulder. He laughed into her neck and tightened his arms around her. After a few minutes longer of swaying together, she heard him chuckle, then say, I keep getting asked if I plan to petition to harvest your eggs. Serenia's population was strictly controlled. Female ovaries were removed at puberty and kept viable in their labs. Anyone desiring children had to file a petition and wait the long vetting process for any egg to be released. She pushed back slightly to look at him. They asked me that too, told me it would be a great way to keep you, our second date, and they think that would be a good idea. Sky expected Jareth to laugh, but his eyes just twinkled at her, making her mouth go dry. Maybe something to look forward to with our third date. His dimple was showing, letting her know he was teasing. Why did it make her so desperate for him again? Shaking slightly, she leaned into him, felt his body shiver against hers. The throbbing she felt started to pound in her ears. She needed a distraction. She glanced around the event, taking in every detail she could. The food was imported and lavish. The entertainment pulled from the most popular performers in the known universes. They had an invitation to stand at her family's table once they arrived, one of the most exclusive. Sky would have traded it all in an instant to be home alone with Jareth. Sky felt a pressure along her back. Jareth's hand there flinched, and he slowed his movement, then stopped. He pulled Sky to his side, then extended his hand. Baron Moray, you do me a great honor. He stated the expected greeting to the planet's leader. Sky forced herself to look relaxed as she came face to face with the person who tortured and tried to end Kyla. Her eyes focused on his piggish face, and she suppressed a gag reflex when she realized his obese figure had been pressing into her back.
Yes, yes, I know, but I'm not here for you. I need to speak with this guy immediately.
He clumsily grabbed Sky's hand and pulled. Her insides froze. Had her face covering slipped? Were they able to scrub one of the port images enough to identify her? Jareth's hand flexed at her side to hold her in place. I'm sorry, Great Leader. My uncle's arrangements were quite clear. My escort is not allowed in the gala. Sky is required to stay with me, or I will be in breach of that agreement. Jareth advised firmly, but smoothly. Sky took a quiet breath in relief. Both men watched each other for longer than was comfortable. She knew that founder policy superseded any magistrate power on Suenia. He didn't have a choice. Finally, the Baron broke the silence.
Fine, if you both will follow me then.
The Baron let go of Sky's wrist, turned on his heels, nearly toppling over from his excessive and unbalanced weight, and headed for a prearranged private room. Once the door closed, he turned to her.
Miss Sky, you did not advise us of your intent to prematurely end the very generous second extension you've been granted. Due to this breach of agreement, you will be required to be part of two additional special projects.
May I see the written agreement? Jareth asked, interrupting the head of the planet. The Baron stopped speaking, his mouth open and closed, but no words came out.
It was a verbal agreement with her parents.
He finally admitted. And that agreement included requirements for her to be part of special projects?
Young man, she was part of at least one ongoing project and was slated to assist with another.
He tried to explain. If my understanding of training special projects are correct, they usually pull students that are challenged by normal training. Certainly, there are more than enough candidates to take her place, unless you're implying Sky has some extraordinary ability that can't be replaced. Jareth was baiting him. She knew it.
Of course not. She's especially adept at everything she does.
He sputtered. Sky wanted in on this one. Then it is my honor to allow you to find someone better suited for the project you entrusted to me. She kept her face contrite to make sure she looked like she was doing him the favor. His face went redder, but he said nothing. He finally took a low, rattly, deep breath.
Fine. I just didn't like the lack of respect you showed us, Miss Sky.
Please forgive my mistake. I thought it would be a relief to everyone. It was not my intent to show disrespect. That was about all the groveling she'd be able to show. At that same moment, there was sharp knocking at the door.
I told you I did not want to be interrupted.
The Baron shouted through the door. It opened anyway. Please forgive me, Great Leader. The Founders Council is about to announce the special allowances they are extending to Miss Rano Dule, and she is needed urgently. Sky's head was swimming. Never had she ever been so needed by so many people. She felt the chaos surge and desperately gripped Jareth's hand. His tightened to hers, his thumb stroking the inside of her wrist. She kept her breathing steady, allowed the moment to be overwhelming, and still moved through it. She followed Jareth out of the room, moving to the location the usher guided them to, and waited, Jareth's thumb gently rubbing, her breathing calm, as she braced for everyone to be focused on her. The council director stepped up to the raised platform, the brightest light in the room centered on him. The giant room quieted as he took his place at the center, the voice amplifier in his hand. Esteemed founders, we on the council welcome you to the 284th annual Founders Day Gala in honor of the original 100 families that sacrificed their home planets and came here to ensure the code stay secure, he started. Everyone in the room repeated, the code stay secure. We have spoken many times over the years of the intelligence, the special skills, integrity, and bravery of those original families. This year we agreed that the sacrifices they all made individually deserve to be recognized. Sacrifices that have given us the security and prosperity we enjoy today. We begin with the Artak family. Oh, that's why. Sky whispered, finally realizing why she had been invited. Sheriff chuckled next to her. Yeah, I think you're the only one that would remotely qualify. Well, this is going to be fun. She breathed ironically. Sky realized this was going to be an especially long presentation. She leaned into Jareth, who pressed against her for support. Since she couldn't insist he be alone with her right now, she would have to settle for what she could get, and what she got still felt really good. She politely listened to the recounting of what each family gave up to start the colonies, all of which she already knew. As she watched the director, she noticed splotchy red patches appear over his face. He had to stop talking a few times to cough, and when he continued to speak, his voice sounded raspier each time. Sky leaned forward, felt Jareth stiffen also as he recognized the signs Sky was seeing. The first time they heard him wheeze in earnest, they moved fast. Someone call the healing transport and we need the portable kit now, Sky ordered as they rushed the rise. Jareth caught him as he collapsed. The room turned into chaos, but Sky stayed focused. The director was having a deadly allergic reaction that needed medicine now, medicine that should be in the kit. The director's eyes were already bulging, his face turning purple, hands at his throat, expression pleading. Director, what are you allergic to? Sky asked, her hand gently on his shoulder as he lay against the floor.
I didn't know it was.
He choked. Okay, you'll be okay. She soothed, trying to calm his need for air until they could fix him. Sheriff was handed the pack. He immediately opened it and searched for the medication they needed. It's not here. Why is there no adrenaline in this pack? He called loudly. It was used 2 years ago as a prank, someone in the crowd admitted. And no one replaced it? Does anyone have a dose? He stood up and looked. Sky prayed someone would offer theirs, but this was a founders group. The risk of someone's death wasn't enough to give away something of theirs. Sky cursed and grabbed the portable pack. She found a knife and a length of tubing that would work. Jareth, I can make another path or I can assist you if you can, she offered quickly as she took the sterilizing patch and smoothed it over the director's throat. Jareth leaned in so only she could hear. The pain might put him in shock. Most people can't recover from that as easily as you, he warned. There's a neural pathway around all the nerves. He won't feel a thing, she explained as she pulled on sterile gloves. I'll keep him distracted and hold him still. Sky nodded, not looking away from her task. The moment she heard Jareth speaking low and soothing to the director, Sky made a small cut, slightly curved as she pushed in, then turned again. She felt the pop that let her know she made it through his throat. She quickly guided the tube through the hole and heard the first breath. She kept an eye on the tube as the director refreshed the oxygen in his body that had been depleted for too long. Once his breathing slowed and calmed, Sky carefully clipped the tube so that only a short piece extended from his neck, then wrapped the incision to prepare his transfer to the healing center. Sky felt a hand on her arm, a gentle squeeze. She looked up and saw the director of the Founders Council watching her. He mouthed, "Thank you." There was so much relief in his eyes. Sky put her hand over his that was holding her arm, added gentle pressure, and nodded back. The healer transport arrived. Sky relayed his condition and actions that were taken to save his life. Jareth took the portable kit from the transport healers, found the needed adrenaline, and finally administered the medication their patient needed. The two transport techs looked at each other, realizing they didn't have anything to do but put the man on the hoverbed and take him to the transport. The director's hand on Sky's arm tightened as they started moving him away. Sky took his hand in hers and stayed with him to the transport. Jareth's hand stayed on her back as they moved. From Kate and Kyla's perspective, the last test victim was moved to the Chameleon. The charges were all set, perfectly placed to destroy the entire lab and everyone involved with the project. Records and backups had already been wiped. When they reported for work the next day, it would be over by the time they checked their monitors. Kyla heard the alert. She rushed to her tablet. Face went pale as she read. Cade, she called shakily. Cade moved to her that same instant. She showed him the screen. Cade's jaw clenched right before he attached the amplifier. Jareth, Sky, don't return to the apartment until I tell you.